Good morning, everyone. My name is John Heerdink, and welcome to our Tribe Public CEO presentation titled Can Targeted Alpha Therapy Cure Cancer? Which will be co-hosted by Naya Therapeutics founder, CEO Daniel Teper. Naya Therapeutics is a biopharmaceutical company pioneering the next generation of cancer therapies, aiming to unlock deep, durable cures that eradicate residual disease and help patients finish their fight against cancer. As many of you know, I am the managing member of Tribe Public. Our website is tribepublic.com. That's TRIBE public.com. Members from 31 plus countries and 50 states have joined Tribe Public freely to gain direct corporate access to leaders and experts that they care about via our webinar events like today and via 41 venue sites located across the U.S. where we host in-person luncheon, dinner, and speaking engagements with local Tribe members. Tribe members, furthermore, are invited to submit names of experts and leaders of industry via our free wish list process at our website 24/7, 365, where they can just simply add names of companies and subjects that span across all sectors and interests so that they can learn more. Please note that I am also the managing director of Vista Partners LLC, a registered investment advisor in California, and its website is vistapglobal.com. Please review both sets of disclaimers at each side and know that I'm currently a shareholder and an advisor to Naya today. I would also like to thank you all for participating and for your questions that you've already submitted, and remind you that if anything comes to mind, any questions, you can submit it via the Zoom chat feature today during this brief, approximately 30-minute event. If we don't get to all the questions, we'll try to get the speaker back at a later date. Lastly, note that a video of this event will be published at our Tribe Public YouTube channel and be sent out to all post this event via our Tribe This Week, which is our weekly e-newsletter that encourages the wish list process and also includes some of the videos and other things that you might find interesting. Thanks again to Naya Therapeutics as the company joining us today, and to Daniel Teper. Daniel, would you please start with just telling us a little bit about yourself and then go into your presentation that you already have up. Thank you.
Thanks, John, and good to be back on Tribe Public. I spent all of my career in the pharmaceutical industry and in biotech, starting in larger companies and then being an advisor to both pharma and biotech, and then eventually going to the entrepreneurial side. So I'm delighted to present Naya Therapeutics today. And Naya has selected one of the newest modalities in cancer treatment in radiopharmaceuticals called alpha therapies. And the question is, can this novel alpha therapy lead to durable cancer cure? So I will be making several forward-looking statements today as part of my presentation. So what's the situation today with cancer treatment? Situation today is that you're getting a higher number of responses. You're getting patients to be stable, but those patients relapse, and they relapse faster than what we would like. And as a result, you get from first line to second line to third line, and patients lives longer, but eventually they exhaust all the treatment options. So the reason they relapse is because of the residual disease, whether you're doing surgery, you're doing chemotherapy, you're doing immunotherapy, you have residual cells that are responsible for cancer relapse. So alpha therapies are designed to help patients eradicate residual disease and minimize the risk of relapse. Naya is bringing two alpha therapies to clinical trials in the coming months. The first one targets CD38 in multiple myeloma, and the second one targets GPC3 for the treatment of hepatocellular carcinoma. Both of them are conjugated with an alpha isotope called astatine 211. So why do we believe that astatine is the next step in radiopharmaceuticals? If you look at the history of the last 5 to 10 years, Novartis was the pioneer with beta emitters and a drug called Luthera, which everybody thought was going to be restricted to a small number of patients with metastatic castration-resistant prostate cancer. Today, Luthera is $2 billion in annual sales and is expected to reach $5 billion in worldwide sales. So obviously, that has ignited the interest not only of Novartis, but of other pharmaceutical companies. Novartis is already at their third acquisition. The most recent one in 2025 is a company that had not even started treating patients. They acquired Mariana Oncology for over $1.7 billion. Also in 2025, BMS acquired ResiBio for $4.1 billion after 30 patients being treated successfully in a phase 1, and also because of ResiBio supply chain infrastructure. Atkis Oncology went public before they treated the first patient for $1.2 billion post-money. And just this week, Regeneron is entering the race through a strategic partnership with Telix, the Australian company, and that partnership is worth over $4 billion. Same time, VCs are investing close to $1 billion raised in the last 9 months in radiopharma companies, and clinical trials are developing as fast as drugs are supplied. So astatine 211 has been researched at Duke University and several other major academic centers for the last 20 years, but the limitation was supply chain. So that's why Professor Zalewski, one of the pioneers, is saying if we can address supply chain challenges, then astatine will emerge as the most important alpha particle. This is the reason why Naya has decided not only to advance its pipeline, but also to tackle supply chain and make sure that the drug will be available not only for phase 1, 2 clinical trials, but for larger clinical trials and eventually commercially. We've brought to our team several executives and scientific and clinical experts in radiopharmaceuticals and specifically astatine. We've established key partnership that I will discuss with both academic centers and commercial players, not just in the US, but worldwide. And therefore, we believe that we're not only advancing a pipeline, but we're creating barriers to entry to followers, at least in the astatine field. So let's talk about astatine. Just a quick reminder, what is a radiopharmaceutical? A radiopharmaceutical is a conjugate of a targeting molecule, which can be a peptide, but in our case is an antibody fragment linked to radioactive isotope, such as actinium, lead, and in our case, astatine. And the targeting molecules binds to the cancer cell, specifically to the cancer cells, and destroys the cancer cell. Alpha therapies, if you compare them to the beta therapies, have very high potency, but they have a short range that minimize the damage to surrounding healthy tissue. And obviously, we're using targeting vectors to increase the precision and specificity to the cells. If you compare to other conjugates, so the beta therapies, which are also radiopharmaceuticals, have limitations, and even the antibody drug conjugates have limited. They're very popular, but they have limitations that are being addressed by alpha therapies, including astatine. So astatine 211 is what most experts are considering the cleanest alpha emitter, short half-life, which is minimal unwanted exposure to radiation, also minimal off-target toxicity because of the clean decay chain, no secondary daughters, simple chemistry, and the source material is bismuth, which is widely available. So if you put that in contrast with the two other major isotope competitor, actinium and lead, basically on every criteria, astatine is winning. And I was talking about decay and waste management. Astatine has no daughters, lead has two daughters, actinium has 4 daughters. The source material of actinium is uranium or nuclear waste, so it's very limited and it's very expensive. So with astatine, Naya is the first company to implement a scalable decentralized supply chain here in the US, but also in Europe and in Asia. How does it work? So currently the supply chain, particularly in academic centers, and the main academic centers are in the US are Duke University, University of Washington, Fred Hutch Cancer Center, and University of Texas. They have an on-site cyclotron, which is not always actually the latest cyclotron, or is not necessarily dedicated to astatine. They have on-site radiopharmacies, some that have more experience in chemistry than others, and then they're limited to treating the patients in that localization. So what is a decentralized supply chain? It means that you can use a commercial cyclotron, which is not necessarily linked to a particular hospital. We are partnering with Ionetics, a company in Michigan, and they ship the astatine powder to local GMP dose manufacturing sites, which can be in San Francisco, in New York, in Miami, and those decentralized manufacturing sites then are supplying the treatment center within a range of 1 or 2 hours, the hospital that are within 1 to 2 hours. So which drugs are we developing? The first one, which was originally developed in Seattle at Fred Hutch and has data that is being published in Blood, as a US IND that has been cleared, and therefore will be able to treat patients as early that immediately after the summer. It has best-in-class potential and is potential for multi-billion-dollar sales. Essentially, it is positioned in patients that do respond to current immunotherapy, but still have residual disease. The addressable market is substantial because patients are living longer with multiple myeloma. There's 500,000 patients that are being managed, but still you need to address relapses. The FDA has recognized that minimal residual disease is an endpoint that predicts survival, and that's why you can now get approval, accelerated approval from the FDA on the basis of MRD negativity. I want to share some of the preclinical data that supports moving into patients. This is the efficacy data in disseminated multiple myeloma. So it does demonstrate that you can eliminate residual disease in the model. And this is the data that shows immediate and long-term safety of this radiopharmaceutical 738. And in particular, you want to make sure that because of the radiation, you don't get additional bone marrow toxicity or kidney toxicity. The second product that we're bringing to the clinic is 703. It targets GPC3, which is expressed in over 80% of the patients with, in the cancer cells only, of the patients with hepatocellular carcinoma. On the right side, you can see the imaging. It's a well-validated target. The competition are Bayer and Bristol Myers Squibb, but they're using actinium, which, as I've described it, has significant weaknesses, particularly from a safety standpoint and from a supply chain standpoint compared to astatine. In addition to development in Europe and in the US, we're planning to enroll patients in China, which will give us early data. Very large unsatisfied markets. There's currently about 1 million patients worldwide. It's going up another 50% in the next few years. You only have 20 to 25% responders on immunotherapy, and on the patients that are getting surgery, you can get up to 75% response, but the majority, relapse within a couple of years. Therefore, the objective with this treatment is to eradicate the residual disease and prevent the relapse. So the team that we've assembled, and it's a global team in the US, in Europe, and in Asia, both China and Japan are some of the top experts in the field. Talking about Europe, we were invited a few months ago by Gustave Roussy Cancer Center. This is a top 5 global cancer center with over 50,000 unique patients, new patients, per year. It's the number 1 in Europe, and they are strong believers in alpha therapies and particularly in astatine. So they asked us to join the cancer cluster next to the hospital and to establish the GMP manufacturing unit that will support clinical trials and in the long term will support patient treatment. They also invited us to participate into an EU funded initiative that will enable us to advance the European clinical trials. So beyond the radiopharmaceutical and astatine experts, we've assembled a senior global management team, and more recently, a board of directors that it's only 5 people, including myself as the CEO of the company. Dr. Benaim is a very experienced oncologist and chief medical officer with over 30 years in the industry. Margarita Chavez was the managing director of AbbVie Ventures, lots of experience in biotech investments. Anne Lauvergeon is an interesting profile because she's a PhD in nuclear physics, and she was also the CEO of Areva, and she pioneered nuclear medicine through a company that is now called Oranomed that has raised hundreds of millions of dollars. She's an accomplished businesswoman. She's actually recognized by Forbes, and she's been on the board of American Express, and she was a partner at Lazard. And last but not least, Raul Singri is a serial senior executive in pharma and in biotech, and was an investor at Flagship. So in summary, Naya in the past year has been consolidating a comprehensive astatine 211 leadership with a pipeline, with a supply chain, and with the readiness to scale rapidly. And this is the reason why just in the past week, we've had major academic centers, major pharmaceutical companies, and major venture capital firms, reach out to us to discuss how we could partner or how they could finance the accelerated development of Naya.
Well, thank you, Daniel. This is extremely interesting, and I'm excited about where this journey has taken you to date. Uh, could you just go into just a little bit more into the supply chain discussion and your advantages there and why that is so important, why it seems to be drawing the attention? Again, like you mentioned, the one of the largest, if not the largest, um, uh, pharmaceutical giants in the world, um, and one of the top, at least one of the top biotech VCs, and their stated interest has been, I believe, not to put words in your mouth, that around the supply chain aspect of this of radiopharma.
No, absolutely. So, pipeline is important. And I met with another of the big pharmas during JP Morgan in January, and they said, yes, supply chain, but we like the fact that you're targeting hepatocellular carcinoma and multiple myeloma, and therefore you're differentiated from the crowd that everybody goes after prostate cancer. And yes, there's improvement that are possible, but you have to get ahead of 20 other companies in that field. And then supply chain is important because Novartis has created significant barriers to entry with lutetium, the first generation of the novel radio isotope. And we believe that Naya can replicate that playbook with astatine. And let me explain just in a few words. If you're doing clinical development in a limited number of patients, you can probably manage to supply the isotope and the drug. But at commercial stage, if you have a breakdown in the supply of the isotope that comes through a cyclotron, if you cannot deliver a consistent drug to every hospital, and remember, it's not like you're stocking drug and you're sending it over 2 years. It's drug that you have to deliver the same day to the patient. You manufacture the drug, you deliver it to the hospital, they treat the patient the same day. So that's a major challenge. On the other hand, I was visiting one of the major U.S. Cancer center last week. If you establish a preferred relationship with them and you're the preferred supplier of astatine 211 radiopharmaceutical, it is very difficult for competitors to duplicate that supply chain because they have to recreate the relationship with the cyclotron company. They have to recreate the local GMP manufacturing unit. So the barriers to entry is much higher than with traditional drugs.
Yeah. So a true moat, as you've mentioned before and referred to, could be established here.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, Daniel, we're getting close to the promised time here of 30 minutes that we try to keep our webinar events to. What I would suggest is, could you just sum up anything that you'd like us to take away, and then I'll sign off for us.
Yes, I think in summary, I will say that radiopharmaceuticals and particularly alpha therapy and astatine are a true revolution in cancer treatment. It's a major step forward toward durable cancer cures. And Naya is positioned. We're a young company, but we are positioned. We're in the pole position, and it's up to us to consolidate this leadership and be rewarded, first of all, in successfully treating patients, but also, rewarding the shareholders by significant valuation, as you've seen from some of the M&A transaction and IPO. And the reason that you have such high valuation at early stages is that you have scarcity of companies like Naya, in contrast to the increasing demand from the big pharma.
Well, thanks again, Daniel, and great way to sum things up here and lead us off to do more work. Speaking of that, if anyone's interested in learning more, one of the ways that you can do it is contact Daniel here, or if you want to reach out to me, I'm always available at john@tribepublic.com, and I can lead you to Daniel in order to get into his data room if you would like to consider looking to invest in a company. The company's always inviting investors to learn more. That would be under CDA, like the big pharma and big venture funds. But don't be shy. If you'd like to learn more, please reach out. Also note that this event video will be published at the Tribe Public YouTube channel later today, and we'll look to that where you can share or review any of this information that's gone over today for the foreseeable future. And now that you've joined it, you'll be beginning to receive the Tribe This Week, which is our e-newsletter that will include some of this information. Also, a source to understand more is we published at our sister organization, Vista Partners, several stories about radiopharma, this industry, and the buyouts that have happened, including Naya's work in it. So I refer you to that if you need to find that at Vista P Global. Just do a search on Naya Therapeutics there, or ping me again, and I'm happy to try to push that your way if you'd like to learn more. So thanks again for everybody around the world for joining us. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Naya Therapeutics. And I wish you great success in the near and distant future. And I'm excited to be a part of this process. But thanks again and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.